There is one underrated technique that has consistently caught us some of our biggest fish, yet almost no one talks about it. In this video I'm breaking down exactly how and when to use this technique, the specific gear you need and the lures to use. Let's get into it.
That's a big fish.
No, dude! Ezox.
Oh, nee!
What?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Oh!
17 and a half.
The big one, man.
No way.
Yo, this is good, man. Yo.
This is insane, man.
The legend is gone.
Wow. So it's getting colder and colder, and you start to notice that certain techniques are not as effective anymore. For instance, trolling at higher speeds. Normally you're like 4.5 was like the normal trolling speed, but now I think with the age of swim baits, especially with all the line through models, people are slowing it down towards like 3.5. But there's another trolling technique during wintertime which can be very effective, and that is slow trolling. And we've been doing it for quite some time. We've been doing it in the days of only 2D sonar with a Canon downrigger.
Recht omhoog, zit er nog bij. Hij zit er nog bij. Hij zit nog steeds achteraan. Nog steeds achteraan. Ah, fuck, het duikt weg.
So, why slow trolling?
Well, vis, hè. Moet kijken wie die burger gepakt heeft.
The fish are quite deep during wintertime. And sometimes, especially what we see today, is that the fish are stuck on the bottom. You can see that the bait fish are packed on top of the bottom. You hardly see any big fish standing really high. And then we're talking about depths of, 13, 14, 15, 16 meters deep. And the bait fish is just a meter above the bottom, and the pike are in between over there. You can't get that deep with regular swim baits, and you can't get them at a slow speed or a slow enough speed so the fish will rise and come up and take them. The funny thing with these slow trolling baits, like a crosstail is an excellent slow trolling bait as well, completely beaten up, but you don't need to run them at 16 meters of depth. You can run them at 10 or 8, and because of the slow presentation and the big profile, fish that stand close to the bottom are hunting between the small bait fish, and then they see a big meal on a silver platter. It just moves really slowly through the clear water, because in winter the water is usually a lot more clear, and that gives them an excellent opportunity to get a really nice big meal. And if it's presented in a slow way, they do want to make the effort to come up and take the bait, but you have to present it in a slow speed because the water temperature is really low, the fish are scattered across the deeper water, and you want to give them enough time to rise up and hit it. If you run your bait too fast, you have two factors. You're not going to get that deep because the bait is going to rise due to the speed, and then at the same time you are limited to the type of bait that you're going to use, and swim baits usually don't run that deep. You can play around with weights, yes, you can get them deeper, but then you still have that high speed, and if the bait is not close enough and it goes too fast, it is too much of an effort for a pike to come from the really deep water, rise up and hit the bait. So we're just presenting a really nice snack for them, or a complete meal, at a very slow speed at an interesting depth for them, because when they're standing a lot deeper, slow trolling really shines and outperforms the regular trolling. But the point is, you slow down, and by slowing down you offer a presentation where the bait runs slowly. It runs a little bit deeper than you would normally do, but it has a couple of complications and limitations as well in terms of bait selection. First and foremost, you need to pay attention to a couple of things. You have slower speed, and that means your bait will run deeper. And if you want to know more about the running depth of your lure and what influences the running depth, we made a whole video about it where we just draw it in the most simplistic way try to explain it, what the factors are. I'm not gonna dive in it today. But you're gonna slow down and the bait is gonna run deeper. But you also have less force to set the hook. So when you're trolling with 3 kilometers an hour, you put way more force on your hook tips compared to 1.5 or 1 kilometer. So stiffer rods, a drag that is super tight is really important, because otherwise you're gonna miss a lot of fish. And especially with big rubber baits like these, you're gonna miss out on fish.
Don't lose it, Frans. Oh, there it goes.
Oh no!
Bye. Bye-bye.
Another thing is that steering corrections, like making a corner, especially sharp turns, you're gonna get punished for that, because the bait's gonna drop down really fast, especially when you weigh them down with some extra weight. They drop down fast, you're gonna pick up mussels and or other debris, or you get stuck. And yeah, you're gonna lose out on the fish as well. There's a infamous water wolf clip of a big viper that picked up some mussels, started swimming again, and 2 minutes later a big northern pike on the river lake comes up, smashes it, and doesn't get hooked because he had a mouthful of mussels. So you have to steer a bit more wide, plan a bit more. You can't do really erratic turns and make corners and stuff. It works sometimes above really deep water. It drops down and then it comes swimming back up, if you have some playroom. So you need to be aware of your situation and, you know, the area around you a lot more than you would normally have to. And then another factor is it's not compatible with all kinds of other baits, and that brings me to the bait part. Line through models, except for the new whitefish, all stop at like 2.7, then they start to stall and don't run that effective anymore, and then you need to go to other baits. There's a bunch of baits out on the markets that have proven to be very effective, and I wanted to show you a couple of them. Start off with the paddle tails, if I can get my viper free from this entanglement. There we go. One of the go-to slow trolling swimming baits that we had was a big paddle tail like this. So there's a big paddle in the back, a big body. You have to rig them yourself, because when you get them out of the packaging, it has 2 gigantic trebles underneath it, which are, well, both not effective, and then they cause a lot of damage when you hook the fish as well. I like to weigh them down a little. In summertime you don't need to weigh them down, but in wintertime I like to add some extra weight, especially if you put them in the rod holder. Then you have a little bit more flexibility in reading it up and dropping it down. This is usually the one that I run deepest, and with, I think this is 30, and then I have another 20 gram on top of it. So yeah, 50 gram extra. You can run it like 9-10 meters easily. You can play around with the live transducer as well, point at it if you want to get some feeling about how deep a bait like this runs. But the cool thing about these is at 1 kilometer an hour, the tail just keeps spinning and the body keeps rolling as well. A highly effective bait where we caught many big fish. Slow trolling, but also when you speed it up a little towards the regular speeds, Viper is really good. A newcomer on the market, which I can show you has been beaten up quite well, is this new line through whitefish. Slightly smaller, the Viper is 40 centimeters, as the Viper 40 name says, but this is 38 centimeters, loud rattle in the tail. But it's still working. They got new rattles from Savage Gear. Pre-rigged, so you don't need to change and tool them yourself. Yeah, you don't need to work them yourself. And it has a chin ring, so you can add some weight on it more easily. This one has a wider rolling action, kicks a bit more water than the Viper, so sometimes the Viper is more effective because it has a slightly more calm presentation compared to the whitefish. This kicks a lot of water. We still have to see how well they do compared to the Viper 40, but this is another big paddle tail that works really nicely.
If you want to become a better pike angler and get insights from me and Frans and others, consider becoming a channel member. Not only are we sharing tons of information, but at the same time you will get access to exclusive content, member premieres, so videos will drop early ad-free, you get discount on several brands, and on top of that you get access to our WhatsApp group where other fanatic pike anglers are present. It's not always politically correct. Jesus, that's a nice word, but it's a lot of fun. If you want to support the channel, check out the link down below. If you have any questions, let me know on socials, and hopefully we will see you around. Cheers.
And then another bait or bait combo that has been really effective for me is all kinds of different mouse combinations. Let's untangle this one. In this case, this is a mouse and a slow roller, 34 centimeter slow roller. A Miura's mouse, heavy head combined with, I think it's a 40 gram, yeah, 40 gram weight in front of it. Free treble setup, in this case is a BKK BB stinger. And you have the water that gets pushed from the mouse head and then the normal regular saw blade action, and it kicks the mouse head a little bit, creating that extra vibration in the water. And it also, when you look upwards, it has a really big profile, which lures these fish from the deep. You can play it with a variety of different speeds with these, and again, with a paddle tail like this, it runs at like 1.5 kilometers an hour. But you can also equip these with curly tails, and I had them with the gator catfish, I've had them with the scout curly, I had them, well, some people put eels behind it as well. So the mouse gives you a little bit of versatility. And that brings us back towards the curly tails. And I think a bait that went out of style for quite some time, because like 10 years ago, I think the burbot was super hot. Now you see them less and less. I don't know why, but this is one of my favorites, the 36 centimeter version of the burbot. This is a classic. Also for casting, this is a highly underestimated bait. But then you have something bigger as well, which is the 50 centimeter, which runs a lot deeper than the 36. I like to put the 36 on the paravan and the 50 on the rod holder, because this one goes way deeper. And as you can see, once you do that and you want to fish in the cone of the live transducer, you can add some weight to these as well. Burbots, excellent for slow trolling. I don't think there's any speed that they don't run. You can run it at 0.5 and they still kick up a lot of water and work really nicely. And again, I don't know why, but they seem to win out of style somehow. Basically for slow trolling, you don't need much. You only need I think a trolling engine, because at these slow speeds, and the slow trolling we're talking about usually be like 1.5 to 2.5 kilometers an hour. We usually go full electric. You could put your trolling engine in reverse, but at those low speeds it's not effective. The benefit of not going that fast is that your electric engine won't use that much power to propel the boat towards like 1.5-2 kilometers an hour. Usually with a decent battery setup you could last the entire day. I'm running a 36 volt, which is overkill for slow trolling. Frans is using a 12 volt system. You can troll the entire day when you aim for speeds at like 1.5, 1.8. Usually when it gets colder you go a little slower, and right now today it's around 7 degrees, which is fairly high for this time of year, so we try to be around like 2 kilometers an hour, sometimes bump it up to 2.3. But we do notice as well that on some days the slow presentation combined with different baits like these curly tails, it really shines compared to the other swim baits, because most of the waters get pressured a lot with the regular swim baits, with trouts, with roaches, the standard good stuff that has been producing really well for all of us. But yeah, now you got these curly tails, and that sometimes does the trick on high pressure waters as well. Finally, rod setup. I would go for slightly stiffer rods than you would normally use. Not so much for the paravans, because you do have to take into account that you're gonna get some slack, so you're not gonna get the direct force of the strike on the rod. But when in terms of using a rod in a rod holder, normally with higher speed you could get away with a slightly softer rod, but now I would definitely go for something like 450 or 600 gram in the rod holder when you're using a big rubber bait like this. Over the years we have seen that stiffer rods in the rod holder have a much better hookup ratio compared to the softer stuff. And back in the days we used a 240 gram Savage Gear Custom in the rod holder, and then you would hit like 50-50 I think with the takes on the rod holder. I think we bumped it up towards 70-75% with the stiffer rods, like the 600 gram SC6. So that's definitely something to look into, and that produces a lot more fish. And I think trolling wise we often get more strikes on the rod holder, because you can play around during slow trolling with the speed and the depth. You can play around with the depth much easier, and especially on days when they are deep and really tricky, hard to get. Getting that little bit of extra depth is way easier with the rod in the rod holder compared to the ones in the paravan, because in the paravan, yeah, you're susceptible to all the turns and corners, and you're gonna pick up a lot of stuff, and that makes it a little less effective.